Sanjaya Uvacha Evamuktva Hrishikesham Gudakesha Parantapa Nayotsya iti Govindam Uktva Tushnim Babhuvaha. So what it says is, this is what Sanjaya is saying to Dhritarashtra. You may have in your books Parantapa or Parantapaha. If you say Parantapa, then it is referring to Dhritarashtra. That Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra. Parantapa means chastiser of enemies. If you say Parantapaha, it is referring to Arjuna as an adjective. Okay, so you can use either, but they say Parantapa is more better in usage. So what it says, Eva Muktva, having said thus, Hrishikesham. Hrishikesha, we saw, he is the lord of the senses. Gudakeshaha. Gudakeshaha is referring to Arjuna. And it means what? The one who conquered sleep. Then we saw Parantapa. Parantapa is chastiser of the enemies. Nayotsya. So he said what? So what did he say? Arjuna is saying this to Krishna. What did he say? Nayotsya, I shall not fight. This is what he said. Iti, thus, Govindam. To Krishna he said, Uktva Tushnim Babuvaha. Uktva means he said. Tushnim means silent. Babuva means he became. So he became silent. Ha, certainly. The general translation is, Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight. And he fell silent. So the interpretation of this is, when they say Tushnim, is actually he became silent. But the interpretation is that he has closed his mouth and he's opened his ears. He has opened his ears for what? For hearing the teachings of Krishna. So what lesson we are getting from that? We have to close our mouth. Sometimes if we keep on talking, then we cannot listen. We will lose out. We will lose the knowledge. If we think that, so sometimes we have to be silent, sometimes we have to talk. So this is a big lesson for us. So when we have to hear the words, the good words, we have to be silent and open our ears and close our mouth. So the next shloka is also very straightforward. So again, this is what is told by Sanjaya. So this is a closing shloka, after which Krishna will begin his teaching as a teacher, as a guru. Then 10th shloka is Tam vacha Hrishikeshaha prahasanniva bharata senayoruvayor madhye vishidantam idam vachaha. Tam vacha. Uvacha is said, Tam is to him, it was said. Hrishikesha, to whom it was said? The master of the senses, Hrishikesha or Krishna. Prahasanniva Bharata. Prahasan is smiling and Iva is he appeared to be smiling. Okay, so he appeared to be smiling. Bharata. Bharata is referring to Dhritarashtra because Sanjaya is talking to Dhritarashtra. So why are they saying that he appeared to be smiling? Why? After Arjuna is so much grief-stricken, okay, why will Krishna smile? Two reasons they are giving. One reason is that Krishna feels this is not a problem at all. Very easily with my jnana, I can remove Arjuna's problem. So he gave a slight smile. The other interpretation is that Krishna is happy that Arjuna crossed all the stages that we saw, the 4 stages, and he became the right disciple. So he is happy with the progress that Arjuna has made. So these are the 2 interpretations. Senayo is the armies, Madhye is between. So Ubayoho is 2 of them and Madhye is between the 2 of them. Vishidantam. Vishidantam, this word we have seen so many times. That means lamenting or sorrowful. To the lamenting, sorrowful one. They didn't give the name here, which is whom? Which is Arjuna. idam vachaha. So they're following words to him. So this is also very straightforward. And only from this now we are going to start all this elaboration. Okay, because to understand what they are saying in the second chapter, we need some foundation. So the next shloka, what we will do is, we will start with the shloka and then we will go to the elaboration. Okay, just I will give you the meaning and then we will go into the elaboration of what it is. So the shloka is Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashocyan Anvashocastvam Prajnavadamscha Bhashase Gatasu Nagatasumscha Nanushocanti Panditaha. Bhagavan Uvacha. So the God said, Bhagavan Uvacha, he said, Ashocyan Anvashocastvam. Tvam is you. So Ashocyan means what? What is not worthy of lamentation. Anvashochaha means you are lamenting. You are lamenting for what is not worthy of lamentation. Suppose one balloon breaks and I start to cry at this age, then what will people say? Something is wrong with this person. Or they will say, how come you are so silly? You are crying for something which is not worthy. The balloon, how does it affect you, right? At my age. So something like that. So he says, Ashocyan Anvashocastvam. Prajnavadam. Prajnavadam means one who is talking like a learned. That means what? If you say to somebody, you appear to be intelligent, you are trying to say you are not intelligent, right? You are appearing to be learned. You are talking as though a learned will talk. Prajnavadamscha bhashase. Gata suna gata agata sunscha. Gata, what is lost? Gata means one who has lost his prana is called gata. Agata means the one who still has the prana. So any day we will lose our prana, but it is not gone. It is still there, agata. So nanu shochanti panditaha. Nanu shochanti means they will not lament. Who will not lament? The panditaha, the learned. Okay. So the learned, usually what we say is Sanskrit Pandit. You are learned in Sanskrit. That means, right? The general meaning. But the Panda also means Atmajna. So Panditaha is also translated as a person who has the Atmajna. So this is what we are going to analyze now. The last line is very important.
Panditaha na anushocanti.
Panditaha, they do not lament. So what is the significance of this? So in this shloka, basically, we'll do the general meaning and we will see the concept and then we will go to that discussion. So what is the general meaning? The Supreme God said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. So three concepts he is giving here. First is you are lamenting for unworthy things. The second thing he is saying is you are talking like a learned. What did we say? If you are talking like a learned means you are not a learned. Why he is not learned?
Panditaha na anushocanti.
They do not lament. They do not cry for the living nor the dead. So we will just take this last line and we will dissect it a little. So what is it?
Panditaha na anushocanti.
So what does it mean? That we translated it to be Atmajnani, Panditaha. So the Pandita, the Atmajnani does not have sorrow. That means what? The person who doesn't have Atmajnanam has sorrow. So the difference between the one who has Atmajnana and the one who does not have Atmajnana, what is the difference? If you do in a mathematical equation, you will get what? The Jnana is the cause for Panditaha not having sorrow. It is the same person. Same person can be Ajnani, he can become a Jnani. It is the same person. But what changed in him? The Atmajnana. So this is the Atmajnana. And then from that you will deduce that Atma Jnana removes sorrow. Because why? Pandita does not have, the learner does not have the sorrow. So if you know that, then what does he have? He has Atma Jnana. So having the Panditaha on his own, nothing. Only with that, because of that Atma Jnana, he is able to reduce the sorrow. So if somebody asks you, okay, Gita, what is it about? So what you should be able to say is Gita, the sadhya or the sadhyam of Gita, which is the goal of Gita, is the removal of sorrow. So now what is the sadhanam of Gita? The instrument is the Atma Jnana. There is just one more step also, Atma Jnana Yogata. That means the ability to get that Atma Jnana in the way of some steps. So only basically the three things are existing in the Gita. The goal of Gita is the removal of sorrow. So what does it prove? It is not for Arjuna, it is for everybody here. And to get to the removal of sorrow, we need to read the Gita or Upanishads or scriptures like that. So the Jnana is going to remove the sorrow. What did Arjuna say to Krishna? Why are you sorrowful? Meaning, he said, oh, the death of Bhishma and Drona is causing me sorrow. So for Arjuna, the death of Bhishma and Drona is causing sorrow. But for us, not the death of Bhishma and Drona, something else, some work or something you want, or something is causing you sorrow, or somebody said something, somebody did something. Okay, this is the cause of sorrow. So what we are basically saying, that this incident is causing for me the sorrow. Let's take the example of a death. So your close friend's mother has died, suppose. So you go to her house. So she is in so much sorrow. Obviously, her mother has died. So she is crying. You are her close friend. So what will happen when you come home also? Few times you'll talk about it. I'm very sad for her. She was very close to her mother. So you will also have some amount of sorrow. Suppose her colleague comes. Okay, she doesn't know her at all. She comes and says, oh, I'm very sorry for your loss and everything. And you hope your mother will get good gati. So what she will do, finish it in 5 minutes. And she will go home. She doesn't remember also when she goes home. So we said, Arjuna said, the cause of my sorrow is death. Everybody, all of us say the cause of my sorrow is somebody said something, somebody did something, I didn't get this. We are saying this. But how come that incident, which is death, which is so sorrowful, caused so much sorrow for your friend, little sorrow for you, and very less sorrow for that colleague? It changed, right? It really changed. For example, in another example, if you think you have a car, that car is giving you so much problem. Till you have the car with you, it is causing you headache. Once you sold that car, are you going to think about what problem it is giving? You get a new car, what problem the new car has, only you. So what has actually happened? The association or I with that problem is the cause of the sorrow. If you will see very closely, that wherever you are attached with the object didn't cause you pain. The attachment of you with the object has caused the pain. That is the first deduction. Okay. So now we go to the next step. Now you are saying that, oh, I am the cause. Actually, this incident is not the cause. This object is not the cause. This person is not the cause. The association of me with that is the cause. Fine. Then what is this I? So what is actually the cause of the problem? We saw this example, right? Two people are going, children are going, they are going hiking. One person sees the rope and he shouts snake. He is very scared. But when that other boy shows the light, then he sees it as a rope. So what was the problem? Lack of light. So the lack of light, they will describe in Vedanta as ajnanam, ignorance. So this is what caused you to think of something as something else. We always misunderstand, we always misinterpret because we don't have the correct knowledge. That is what is causing the problem. Like even in day-to-day life, we misunderstand people because of what? The incorrect understanding. We don't know from where they are coming. In normal life, not even in Vedanta. Like even if you see like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that author will quote an incident where he will be going in a train, and then he will see that there is a group of children and the father sitting there and the children totally misbehaving. So what he will say is, how come these children are misbehaving? The father is sitting there and he will want to ask what it is about. Then the father will say, I just lost my wife 5 minutes ago. Now the children don't know how to react, neither do I. So when he comes to know that, his mind totally switches and says, poor fellow, right? So most of the time we misunderstand everything and we think this is it. So the ajnanam is the cause of the sorrow. Okay. What does that ajnanam lead to? It leads to what they will call in Vedanta as adhyasam, which means superimposition. What happened? You superimposed that snake on the rope. The rope was there, but you superimposed because of what? You didn't have the light. So that is the second step of this problem. And then what did you do? You had the wrong association, abhiman. So if you had the incorrect knowledge, and the incorrect knowledge what you superimposed with I, which is abhimana. So you had a wrong notion of I-ness also, which saw the wrong object also. So this combination led to what we saw in the first chapter, right? We saw that so the attachment, the wrong I attaching with the anitya vastu or whatever is not real or true, it causes for you the attachment, raga. We saw that it was the raga. And then the raga created what? Raga created lot of other issues like shoka. With shoka we say it creates fear, it creates anger, everything. Shoka meaning general meaning sorrow, but we will also include the anger, fear, everything. And then it led to moha. Moha means what? Delusion. So what is the final statement you make? The death of this person is causing me sorrow. But actually, if you trace back, it was ajnanam, and then it was adhyasam, and then it was abhimanam, and then it was raga, then it was shoka, and then it was moha. So on the surface, you make a judgment. Oh, this is a cause. Oh, my boss is troubling me. Now this is a cause of my sorrow. But you never went and took the time. We take the time for so many things, but we never took the time to understand really, is my understanding of I correct or not? So that is what we are going to see in this Gita. Ajnanam, Vedanta says, is the Moola Karanam for everything. So what Krishna is going to do is the Shoka Nivritti. That is the Palan of the Gita. And he is going to use the instrument of Atma Jnanam for the Shoka Nivritti. So now what we are saying is, first, if we trace back the Moham, it was Shokam, it was Raga, then it was Abhimanam, it was Adhyasam, and it is Ajnanam. Right? Now, this chapter is known as Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga means the knowledge of the Atman. So this is what we are going to see in this chapter. And Sankhya also means the scripture in which the tattva is explained correctly. That is called Sankhya. So that is the exact meaning. So in this chapter, what we are going to see is the knowledge of the Atma. We have to come to a very important discussion, which is about the I. So when you are saying I, what are you referring to? When you say I, you know one thing for sure. I am seeing. That means what? Is that I is a conscious principle. If you were a table or a book, you will not say that the table or the book can see. So first of all, we know that I is a conscious principle. In Vedanta, they will have different ways of investigation. They will use a method which is known as a Drik Drishyam Viveka. That means how Drik is the seer or the perceiver, and Drishyam is the object which is seen. So now what is the discussion about? it is a discussion about I. Or if we want to understand in a simple terminology, whatever we say mine is not I. That we can understand, right? With English is when I say my book, that means I am not that book. When I say my daughter, I am not that daughter. When I say my mother, I am not that daughter. That much we know, correct? So these objects included from that I. So I know very well I can't be that book or this table or this chair or some other person. Problem happens when sometimes you use I and mine interchangeably, is the body and the mind. Sometimes you will say, like when you go to the doctor, you will say that I am not well, doctor, or you will also say my body is weak. So for this body, you have used two words. You have said I and you have said as mine. So now there is a problem. We don't know if the body is I or not. The mind also the same thing you do, because in the mind you think that I'm depressed, you use the word I, and then some say my mind is confused. So the my word has used for both the body and the mind. So I know that the object is not me, that much I'm clear. So is it the body or is it the mind or is it somebody else? So that is the question now. We need to understand that to know the real I. So now what we do is we use another principle. They will take three states or avasthas. So the first state they will call the Jagrat Avastha or the waking state. The second state they will call the Swapna Avastha or the dreaming state. And the last state is the Shushupti Avastha, which is the deep sleep state. So in the Jagrat Avastha, I am thinking sometimes I'm the body, I'm thinking I'm the mind. So all this confusion is happening to me in the Jagrat Avastha. But what happens to people when they are in the dream state? Even scientists will say, call it the REM state, that is rapid eye movement, REM and non-REM. REM meaning that you have this movement, you are dreaming. So in that state, what happens is the body is not existing. The body is at rest, right? But you are experiencing the dream. So somebody is there who's experiencing this dream. So so body is absent. So you can negate the body at that point, correct? Body is totally, you don't know where you are, right? The body is not. But the person who is dreaming knows he had the dream. So there must be either it is the mind which is the conscious thing, or it is something other than the mind which is the conscious principle. Correct? Now I've come to negate the body as the unconscious principle, because when I dreamt, I know that I dreamt. How? My question is my mind the conscious one? Then you go finally to the sleep state. Sleep state is when the body is absent, also the mind is absent. In that state, still, when you come out of the sleep, you know that you had slept. How? In the deep sleep state, you understood that there is something else other than the body and the mind. So I am not the body or the mind. At the moment, you need to know this I which you are calling is not with these objects, and you are not the body or the mind. That is what we want to prove. So there is one more person they will call as the fourth person, and that is the Atman. So there are only two things then. What they will say, very simple, very, very simple. There is something called the Atman, which is a conscious principle. Everything else other than the Atman is the Anatman. That's all. Only two things. They will call with different names. So that may be a little bit difficult to grasp. But the concept is simple, that you have an Atman, which is a conscious principle, and you have the Anatman, which is actually Jada. So the body and the mind are actually Jadas. They appear to be conscious. That will go into why it appears to be conscious. Okay, it appears. I know that when I am moving, I think I am conscious, but that is not the exact consciousness. What they will do is they will describe with other terminologies. So there is something which is the knower, which is a drik, and what is there seen. The experience of the dream was also seen. So that is drishyam. It is just an object. So whatever is seen becomes objects. So the drik is the knower. It is the conscious principle. So if you want to talk about the body, you will call it as Deha. Deha is also coming in the category of Anatma, which is the body. Opposite of Deha, they will say Dehi, the embodied. That is, there is a consciousness. Just imagine like a person inside you, just for now. That there is this conscious person, and then there's something surrounding. The body is just surrounding it. So that is called as the Dehi. I am inside this body. The consciousness is inside the body, and the name they use is Dehi. In case you want to use the word Sharira, which also means the body, Sharira and Shariri. So these are all the opposites that you will use. And for consciousness, you will use Chetana, Chit and Jada, inert. Body is also Jada. Mind is also Jada. So there are two different things only, actually, if to understand the Atma and the Anatma. Two things. So these are all basic terminologies that we will learn. So we are going to go into an analysis of all these things, because the more you know about it, the more you'll be able to differentiate. But we will build on this. So for you to know that there are only two things. We don't need to be concerned with so many things. Two things, Atma and Anatma. Anatma is the one that we are seeing, and Atma is the one which knows. That's all. Two things. So if we will try to follow all these things, we are better suited. We are in a better position to observe the teachings of these scriptures. That is the principle behind it. So thank you so much.